My name is Brian Seaver, son of Cassie Parton, and I am representing the Parton and Owens family today, announcing the passing of my Aunt Dolly Rebecca Parton Dean, sister, sis, Aunt Granny to one generation and Gigi to the next. This video.
Hours after the world learned that Dolly Parton was gone at 80 years old, her official executive team released a formal, written posthumous announcement that sent shockwaves through the global media. There were no flashy graphics accompanying the release, no promotional links, no sugar-coated publicity spins. Just a stark, formal document issued directly from her representatives in Nashville. Dolly departed her earthly life today at the Vanderbilt Ingram Cancer Center surrounded by loved ones, after bravely facing a brief battle with cancer. The public statement confirmed what her inner circle had been whispering about in total secrecy for months. But beneath that carefully polished media release lay a shocking, unglamorous reality that her corporate team had worked night and day to scrub from headlines. For nearly 2 years leading up to her passing on August 25, 2026, Dolly had been suffering through an exhausting, multi-system physical collapse. Severe dehydration, bouts of sudden, disabling dizziness, kidney stone complications, and a quiet, undisclosed oncology battle had ravaged her aging body behind locked doors. Why did her team conceal the severity of her condition until the very end? Because while her own health was crumbling in silence, she was sitting by the bedside of her husband of 58 years, Carl Dean, nursing him through his final months before his death in 2025. She deliberately ordered her staff to hide her medical status, refusing to let the media divert attention away from Carl's final days. Then came the visual break. Her nephew and longtime head of security, Brian Seaver, stepped in front of a lens to deliver a video announcement that Dolly had personally dictated years before. This video announcement, Seaver stated with a shaking voice, is something Dolly asked of me years ago, before I fully absorbed it as a future reality. He admitted that as her security chief for over 2 decades, a post inherited from his father, Larry, he had rehearsed the logistics of her death 1,000 times, but nothing could prepare him for the sheer weight of executing it. Sadness lies with us, not with Dolly, he added, echoing the precise words Dolly had instructed him to deliver. While fans gathered outside her Brentwood estate leaving flowers, a far more intense battle was igniting within the executive suites of her corporate empire. Dolly Parton did not leave behind a standard celebrity estate. She left behind a financial titan valued between $450 million and $650 million. She left no biological children, no direct heirs to quietly inherit the throne. And as music executives and probate attorneys began scrambling to parse her legal paperwork within hours of the announcement, they hit an iron wall. Every master recording, every publishing asset, every trademark, and every square foot of her physical properties were locked inside tightly engineered legal trusts, designed decades ago. How did a child from a dirt floor cabin in the Great Smoky Mountains craft an executive strategy so airtight that even the biggest record labels couldn't breach it? The answer traces back to a dark turning point in the mid-1970s, when she looked at a contract presented by the most powerful manager in entertainment history, realized it was a trap, and chose to walk away into absolute independence. To comprehend why Dolly Parton's executive team operates with such fierce, fortress-like protection over her assets, you have to look into the dirt of Locust Ridge, Sevier County, Tennessee. She was born on January 19, 1946, the fourth of 12 children crammed inside a 2-room wooden cabin. This was not cinematic Appalachian folklore. It was crushing, generational poverty, the kind of poverty where winter cold cuts through pine walls, food scarcity is a daily reality, and basic medical care is entirely out of reach. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, was an illiterate sharecropper and tobacco farmer who signed legal papers with a drawn X because he was never taught to write his name. Dolly spent her childhood watching honest, hard-working mountain people get exploited, financially manipulated, and stripped of their land simply because they couldn't read the contracts placed in front of them. Her mother, Avie Lee, married at 15 and bore 12 children by 35. She famously stitched together scraps of old fabric to craft a warm winter jacket for young Dolly, an act of pure survival that Dolly turned into her defining artistic anthem, Coat of Many Colors. That coat taught Dolly the ultimate rule of business. The narrative you attach to an asset determines its actual value. Scraps of trash became a sacred treasure because of the story woven around them. She began singing in local mountain churches at 6. By 13, she was recording singles for small regional labels. The morning after graduating from Sevier County High School in 1964, becoming the first in her family to earn a high school diploma, she packed a cardboard suitcase and boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Nashville. Nashville in the mid-1960s was an aggressive corporate machine built to strip naive country talent of their intellectual rights. Industry executives saw a 17-year-old girl with a thick mountain accent and cheap clothes and assumed she was an easy victim. When she joined the Porter Wagoner Show in 1967, Porter Wagoner positioned himself as the mastermind behind her rise. He controlled the television platform, dictated the show arrangements, and assumed Dolly would remain a secondary act under his corporate thumb. Dolly countered by creating an untouchable public persona. The towering blonde wigs, over 100 of them, cataloged and stored in climate-controlled rooms, were not an expression of vanity. The heavy makeup, the synthetic nails, the extreme hourglass wardrobe, it was a calculated visual suit of armor. "It takes a lot of money to look this cheap," she told interviewers with a laugh. The male executives laughed along, convinced she was a naive visual caricature. But behind those artificial eyelashes, Dolly was secretly taking accounting classes, studying copyright laws, and analyzing every royalty check that crossed her desk. She let the industry treat her like a dumb blonde, using their condescension as cover, while she built an independent financial empire right under their noses. By 1974, Dolly had outgrown Porter Wagoner's show. To signal her complete professional break, she sat down late one night and wrote a farewell song, "I Will Always Love You." The track skyrocketed to #1 on the country charts, and almost immediately, the biggest predatory force in the music industry came knocking. Dolly received a phone call from the management team of Elvis Presley. Elvis had heard the track, loved it, and wanted to record his own cover version. In 1975, an Elvis Presley cover was the single most lucrative event a songwriter could dream of. It guaranteed tens of millions of global record sales, permanent international radio airplay, and astronomical royalty income. Dolly was ecstatic. Arrangements were made, and studio time was scheduled. Then came the ambush. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's notoriously ruthless manager, contacted Dolly directly to execute his standard contract shakedown. He coolly informed her that under Elvis policy, no track would be recorded unless the songwriter surrendered 50% of the publishing rights and 50% of all future intellectual property royalties directly to Elvis's holding company. It was standard industry extortion. Parker had forced dozens of desperate writers to give up half their life's work for the prestige of an Elvis recording. Most writers signed instantly. Dolly froze. She thought of her father standing in Sevier County, signing away his rights with an X because he couldn't read the contract. She realized that if she signed Parker's paper, she was surrendering control of her own creation to a corporate entity. She told Colonel Tom Parker no. Parker was stunned. He reminded her she was walking away from the king of rock and roll. He warned her that rejecting Elvis could ruin her standing in the industry. Dolly held her ground, hung up the phone, and locked herself in her room, weeping for days. She loved Elvis's music, but she refused to let anyone strip away her ownership. "I cried all the way to the bank," she famously observed years later. For 17 years, "I Will Always Love You" remained quietly in her catalog, fully owned, 100% hers. Then came 1992. Whitney Houston was recording the soundtrack for The Bodyguard and decided to cover Dolly's song. Whitney's operatic version became a massive global phenomenon, spending 14 weeks at #1 on the Billboard charts and selling over 20 million physical copies worldwide. Because Dolly had refused to give up her publishing rights to Elvis in 1975, every single cent of the songwriter and publishing royalties, totaling over $20 million from Whitney's release alone, went straight into Dolly's bank account. Had she agreed to Colonel Parker's terms, half of those millions would have been diverted to Elvis's estate. Her refusal proved a vital lesson to Hollywood. Dolly Parton did not need corporate gatekeepers to validate her work. She owned her legacy outright. By the time her executive team issued their statement on August 25, 2026, Dolly's songwriting catalog contained more than 3,000 fully owned titles. That catalog alone generates an estimated $85 million in passive annual royalties. Her complete net worth, evaluated across multiple business verticals, sits between $450 million and $650 million. Her largest non-musical asset is Dollywood, the massive theme park complex in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, drawing over 3 million visitors a year. By acquiring a stake in Silver Dollar City in 1986 and rebranding it, Dolly turned her childhood home of Sevier County into a dominant regional economic engine. The park provides thousands of jobs to the very mountain community where her family once struggled. Beyond theme parks and music catalogs, she founded Sand Dollar Productions, the private television and film production company behind massive commercial hits like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Father of the Bride. Yet while other ultra-wealthy figures channeled their fortunes into luxury fleets, Dolly quietly directed hundreds of millions into targeted philanthropy. Through her Imagination Library, founded in 1995 to honor her illiterate father, her foundation has mailed over 260 million free books directly to children across 5 nations. In 2020, she made a silent $1 million donation to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. That specific funding directly backed the foundational research required to develop the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine, saving countless lives long before her contribution became public knowledge. However, the most intriguing element confirmed by her executive team involves the content locked inside her physical archives. Deep within Dollywood sits a concrete and steel time capsule holding a wooden box carved from the chestnut trees of Locust Ridge. Inside that box lies a fully produced, unreleased master recording that Dolly wrote and recorded in complete secrecy. Under her strict legal directive, that vault cannot be opened until January 19, 2045, marking her 99th birthday. There are no digital streams, no master files uploaded to servers, and no cloud redundancies. Dolly intentionally sealed her final artistic work in a physical tomb, forcing the music industry to wait 2 full decades after her death just to hear her final recorded words. When Bryan Seaver ended his video announcement on August 25th, he emphasized a key point. Dolly has lived in the light and is in the arms of Jesus, surely met by Carl, her parents, and countless others. While fans around the world mourn her passing, the executive team she spent decades assembling has quietly executed her final orders. Dolly Parton died without leaving direct biological descendants. Yet her estate planning leaves no room for corporate legal battles or external buyouts. Her multi-hundred-million-dollar fortune, her publishing assets, and her commercial stakes are permanently locked within private family trusts. These trusts are structured to fund her Imagination Library indefinitely, support her surviving siblings and extended family, and maintain full ownership of her catalog. Furthermore, her team confirmed that her creative contributions are not over. She left behind thousands of unrecorded lyrics, vocal takes, and fully structured arrangements in her private archives. Her Broadway production, Dolly, a true original musical, remains scheduled to open on Broadway in December 2026, serving as an ongoing monument to her life's work. The legal machinery following her death will process endless paperwork, tax filings, and estate valuations, but her songs will never enter probate court. Jolene will continue to stream across continents. Coat of Many Colors will continue to remind generations of the strength found in adversity. 9 to 5 will remain an enduring anthem for working people everywhere. Dolly Parton was born in a 2-room cabin with nothing to her name. She passed away as one of the most successful self-made figures in global entertainment history, having given away vast fortunes while maintaining 100% control over every word she ever wrote. Her iconic wigs, bright makeup, and shimmering costumes were never mere vanity. They were the armor of a mountain girl who decided early on that nobody would ever own her story, her music, or her legacy. Leave a tribute in the comments for Dolly Parton, an American icon who owned every note she ever sang. What is the greatest lesson you take from her life, her business intellect, and her generosity? In the days following the initial posthumous announcement, behind the polished statements from her publicists and the video tributes from her security team, entertainment attorneys began sifting through the massive legal mountain Dolly Parton left in her wake. What they discovered inside her private estate documentation was not a messy web of conflicting claims or chaotic family disputes. It was something far more astonishing. A military-grade corporate succession plan engineered to lock down her financial legacy for the next 100 years. Most high-net-worth music icons leave behind legal minefields. When artists like Prince, Elvis Presley, or Michael Jackson passed, their estates were instantly plunged into decades of bitter courtroom battles, IRS tax liens, aggressive corporate takeovers, and family feuds over unreleased material. Corporate vultures circled, waiting to carve up their publishing catalogs and sell off their image rights to the highest bidder. Dolly Parton knew this. She had watched it happen to her peers throughout her 60-year career, and she made certain it would never happen to her. Her executive team revealed that as early as the late 1990s, Dolly had begun quietly restructuring her entire asset architecture into airtight, irrevocable trusts managed by a tight-knit board of trusted family members, financial advisors, and private legal counsel. Every song, every copyright, every licensing agreement, and every square foot of her property was legally categorized and bound by strict operating mandates that no external entity can overturn. Under the specific terms of her estate framework, no private equity firm, major record label, or corporate media conglomerate can ever purchase a majority stake in her publishing catalog. Her 3,000-song library, worth well over $150 million on its own, is legally mandated to remain whole, generating passive royalties that will continuously flow into her charitable foundations and private family trusts in perpetuity. Furthermore, her legal team confirmed the existence of strict guidelines regarding the use of her image and artificial intelligence. Long before AI voice cloning and digital holograms became major industry controversies, Dolly insisted on strict contractual protections prohibiting the unauthorized commercial recreation of her likeness or voice. Anyone seeking to use her image, catalog, or story for commercial projects must pass through a rigorous approval process overseen by her designated trust executors. Then there is the matter of her unreleased archives. Beyond the locked 2045 Dollywood vault lies a treasure trove of raw demo tapes, unreleased studio takes, alternate vocal tracks, and handwritten song lyrics stored in climate-controlled facilities across Tennessee. Industry insiders estimate that her private archives contain hundreds of completed or semi-completed tracks that the public has never heard. Her executive team clarified that these archives will not be hastily dumped onto streaming platforms for a quick cash-out. Instead, her trust dictates a slow, meticulously curated release schedule designed to preserve the artistic integrity of her catalog over the coming decades. Every future release, documentary, or theatrical production must adhere to the high standards she established during her lifetime. Dolly Parton did not just build a career, she built an impregnable legal fortress. She took the trauma of growing up in a house where her father signed his name with an X and transformed it into the most sophisticated, self-contained business empire in the history of American music. She proved that an artist, especially a woman who was constantly dismissed and objectified early in her career, could hold total authority over her work, outsmart the most predatory executives in Hollywood and Nashville, and leave behind a legacy that remains completely unbroken. As the months turn into years, the bright lights of her stage performances will fade into history, but the architecture she built will endure. The books will continue to arrive in the mail for millions of children. The theme parks will continue to employ the people of Sevier County. The songs will continue to play in every corner of the world. Dolly Parton was never just a singer. She was a master architect of her own destiny, a business titan disguised in rhinestones, and a woman who proved that true power comes from owning every single word you write. Subscribe to the channel